Welcome to Career Ambitions, the podcast for corporate professionals who are ready to stop waiting and take control of their careers. If you're tired of sending applications into the void, wondering why you're not getting interviews, and watching opportunities go to people who are no more qualified than you're in the right place, my friends. I'm Joanne Sparrow, former HR director turned career coach, and I've spent more than 2 decades sitting on the other side of the hiring table. That means I know exactly what hiring managers think and what they say behind closed doors. Join me on this episode of Career Ambitions, where I'm pulling back the curtains on the hiring process and unapologetically exposing the truths job seekers are never told to give you the strategy and confidence to move your career forward and land your dream job or promotion. You've been working hard, you've been showing up, and you've been delivering results, and you just know that you are ready for the next level. So you ask, and you hear no, or worse, not right now. And you walk away confused, maybe a little hurt, and honestly, a little angry, because you did everything right, didn't you? Here's what I want to tell you today. I want you to really hear this. The problem wasn't your performance. It wasn't your track record. It wasn't even your ask. It was your timing. Welcome back to Career Ambitions Podcast. I'm your host, Joanne Sparrow, career coach and former HR director with over 20 years of experience in hiring, developing, and evaluating talent at some of the world's most competitive organizations. And today, we are getting into one of the most requested topics I hear about, not just from my coaching clients, but in my DMs, in my LinkedIn comments, and in every single webinar I run. How do you ask for a promotion or raise and actually get a yes? Because here's the thing, I've sat on the other side of that conversation hundreds of times. I've said yes, I've had to say no, and I've had to say not yet. And I can tell you with complete confidence, the difference between those outcomes is rarely about talent. It's almost always about timing, strategy, and self-awareness. So today, I'm breaking down the 5 biggest timing mistakes people make when asking for a promotion or raise, and exactly what to do instead. So by the end of this episode, you're going to have a completely different relationship with this conversation. Let's dive in. Before we dive into the 5 mistakes, I want to give you a reframe that I think is going to change how you approach this entire topic. Promotions and raises are not gifts. They are business decisions. I want you to write that down if you're somewhere you can do that. Promotions and raises are business decisions, not gifts. This is something I said constantly in my HR director days. And it's something I say to every single coaching client who comes to me frustrated about being passed over. When you understand that a promotion is a business decision, everything shifts because suddenly it's not personal. It's not about whether your manager likes you. It's not about office politics. Well, not entirely. It's about whether the business case for your advancement is strong enough at the right moment and in the right context. And just like any business decision, timing matters enormously. Think about it this way. Imagine you're a small business owner and one of your best employees comes to you asking for a significant raise right in the middle of your worst quarter in 3 years. You love this person. You believe in them completely. But the timing makes it nearly impossible to say yes. That's the reality that your manager and HR are navigating every single time you make the request. Now, here's the good news. Once you understand this, you can use this. You can position yourself strategically. You can read the room. You can make it genuinely easy for your manager to say yes. And that is exactly what we're going to be talking about today. I recently came across an article written by a former senior HR leader who managed hundreds of employees at companies like Nordstrom, Verizon, and Yahoo. She laid out 5 of the most common timing mistakes she's seen, and honestly, everything she said aligned perfectly with what I've witnessed in my own 20 plus years in HR. So I'm going to walk you through each one, and I'm going to add my own coaching perspective, my own client stories, and my own frameworks for what to do instead. Mistake number 1, you just got promoted and you're already asking for more. I'm going to tell you right now, this is more common than you think. I've lived this from the HR side more times than I care to count. And the article describes a high performer who was promoted to senior manager after a solid year of work. Less than 90 days later, 90 days, she sent her manager a formal proposal for another title change, complete with comp benchmarks and a list of expanded responsibilities. Now, was she doing more work? Yes. Was she ambitious? Absolutely. But here's what her manager saw and what I would have seen sitting across from her. She hadn't been in the role long enough to demonstrate success at that level. She was still proving herself, and the optics of asking for more every quarter, they signal a lack of self-awareness. And in leadership, self-awareness is everything. I've seen this pattern in my own coaching practice as well. Someone gets promoted, they're energized, they're motivated, and they start looking ahead immediately, which is great. Ambition is a gift. But there's a difference between being ambitious and appearing impatient. So what to do instead? First, give yourself permission to be in the role. Settle in, learn in, master it. Let your results speak before your mouth does. Second, keep a record of what's changing. If your responsibilities are genuinely expanding beyond your new role description, document that. Bring it up in your regular check-ins with your manager as an observation, not a demand. You might say something like, I've noticed my scope has grown in these areas, and I'd love to talk about what that means for my path forward. That's a very different conversation than saying, I want a raise. And third, understand the cycle. Most organizations have structured performance review periods, mid-year, year-end, and know when these windows are. Work towards them, use them. My rule of thumb, give yourself at least 12 months in a new role before making a formal ask for the next level. Use that time to build an undeniable case. Mistake number 2, you bring up your promotion in your first few meetings with a new manager. Oh, this one. I've seen this go sideways so many times, and I completely understand why people do it. You're excited. You want to make a strong impression. You want your new manager to know that you're ambitious and going places. But here's the analogy from the article that I absolutely love, and I'm going to steal it because it's perfect. It's like walking into a room you've never been in before and immediately asking to rearrange the furniture. Isn't that so accurate? Your new manager's still figuring out the room herself. She doesn't know your full body of work yet. She doesn't know the team dynamics. She doesn't know what her own priorities are going to be. And here you are asking her to champion your advancement before she even knows your name properly. What does that communicate? That you're thinking about yourself, not the team, not about her, and not about the work. Now, I do want to be clear. There is absolutely nothing wrong with mentioning your career goals early on. If you had an active conversation with your previous manager about a promotion, it's completely appropriate to say, I want you to know that my previous manager and I had been discussing my growth toward the next level. I want to continue that conversation with you when the time is right. That's transparent, that's professional, and that's very different from walking in and saying, what do I need to do to get promoted this week? So what to do instead? Your first 60 to 90 days with your new manager should be about one thing: building trust and credibility. Ask smart questions. What does success look like in this role from her perspective? What are her biggest priorities right now? Where does she see the team going? What challenges is she trying to solve? Then, and this is key, deliver exactly on what you hear. consistently, visibly, without being asked. When you do that, the promotion conversation becomes much easier because she's already seen your value. She's already advocating for you in rooms you're not in. And when you finally make the formal ask, she's nodding before you've finished the sentence. Mistake number 3, the team is off track or the business is under pressure and you ask anyways. This one is so important, and I think it's the one that catches the most deserving people off guard because it's genuinely nothing to do with your performance. You could be the strongest performer on the team and you could have an absolutely airtight case for advancement. And the answer is still going to be no if the business context isn't right. The article describes employees coming to their manager during expense freezes, department restructures, or right after the company missed its numbers, with strong cases and still hearing no. I've been that manager. I've had to look someone in the eye, someone I genuinely believed in, someone I wanted to promote, and say, I just can't make this happen now. And it was one of the hardest parts of my job because it wasn't about them. It was about the business. Here's what I want you to understand. Your manager is not the only decision maker in the process. Promotions and salary increases almost always require approval from multiple layers: HR, finance, and senior leadership. When budgets are frozen and when headcount is being cut, when the business is in crisis mode, those approvals simply aren't available, no matter how deserving you are. So how do you know when the business is under pressure? Pay attention to the signals. Are there hiring freezes? Has there been recent restructuring and layoffs? Is your manager unusually stressed or distracted? Did the company miss its targets last quarter? Are discretionary projects being put on hold? These are the signals that now is not the time. So what to do instead? This is actually a massive opportunity in disguise. When things are hard, when the business is under pressure, when the team is struggling, the people who step up and lead through it become absolutely invaluable. Be the person who brings calm when everyone else is panicking. Be the person who finds solutions when others are identifying problems. Be the person who makes your manager's job easier when everything else feels hard. And then, when the business stabilizes, when the pressures ease, you will have a story to tell. For example, during that difficult quarter, I did XYZ, and I led through uncertainty. I delivered results when it was hard, and now I'd like to talk about what's next for me. That's a promotion conversation that is very difficult to say no to. Mistake number 4, you missed a milestone or received feedback you haven't incorporated yet, and you ask anyways. This one's about self-awareness. And I say this with so much compassion because I think it's one of the most common blind spots I see in ambitious professionals. Here's a scenario from the article, and I've seen almost this exact situation play out in my own career as an HR leader. A direct report is doing great work overall, but he had a real gap when it came to cross-functional influence and managing up, working effectively with senior leaders. His manager had an open, honest conversation with him about it. He acknowledged it and he committed to working on it. 2 weeks later, he asked if he was in line for a promotion that quarter. 2 weeks. Now, I want you to think about what that communicated to his manager. Not that he was ambitious, not that he was confident. What it communicated was, I heard your feedback, but I don't really think it applies to me. And that is a red flag for any leader. Because coachability, the ability to receive feedback, sit with it, and genuinely change your behavior is one of the most important indicators of leadership potential. And if you can't demonstrate that you can grow from feedback at this level, how is anyone going to trust you to lead others at the next level? Here's something I'll tell my coaching clients all the time. Feedback is not a hurdle. It's a gift. It's a roadmap. When your manager takes time to give you specific, honest feedback, they are literally telling you what you need to do to get promoted. And that is a gift. Treat it like one. What to do instead? When you receive feedback, slow down. Don't rush to prove you've fixed it. Actually fix it. Give it time. Let the change be visible. Let it be undeniable. And then when you make your ask, you get to include that growth as part of your case. For example, 6 months ago, you gave me feedback about a specific area. I took that seriously, and here's what I've done differently, and here's the impact I've seen. Now your promotion case isn't just about results, it's about your character, your coachability, your mindset, and all those things. They are incredibly compelling to any leader worth working for. Mistake number 5, and this one surprises a lot of people. You waited too long. Yes, you can absolutely wait too long to have this conversation, and it can cost you just as much as asking too soon. Here's what that looks like in practice. Someone has been quietly delivering. They've been doing great work. They feel ready for the next level, but they've never really talked about it with their manager, and they've never made their ambitions visible. They've never had an explicit conversation about the path forward and what that looks like. And then one day they walk into their manager's office and say, I think I'm ready to be promoted. And their manager? Completely caught off guard. Not because the person isn't ready, but because the groundwork was never laid. There's no shared narrative, no documented track record of conversations, no context. And promotions, especially at senior levels, often require a process. They require approvals, budget allocation, sometimes a restructuring of roles and responsibilities. That just doesn't happen overnight. If your manager has to start from zero when you make your ask, you've already lost time, weeks, maybe even months. And the article really makes an important point here. Big asks shouldn't come out of nowhere. They need a track record with a narrative, relationships, and often a formal process behind them. So here's what you should do instead. Make career growth a regular part of your conversations with your manager, not in a pushy way, but in a professional, intentional way. Use your one-on-ones and ask questions like, what does over-delivering look like at my level? What would I need to demonstrate to be considered for the next level? And can you help me understand what the path forward looks like from here? These questions do 2 things. First, they give you incredibly useful information. Second, they signal to your manager that you are ambitious, self-aware, and thinking strategically about your career. And that matters. When the time comes to make the formal ask, your manager should already be nodding because you've been having those conversations for months. You've been building towards it together. It's not a surprise. It's a natural next step. Okay, so we've covered the 5 mistakes. Let me bring this together for you with a simple framework. I use this with my coaching clients. I call it the ready check. Before you make an ask for promotion or raise, run yourself through these 5 questions. Results. Do I have clear, specific, measurable results to point to? Not just effort, but outcomes. What did I deliver? What changed because of my work? And what numbers can I put behind it? Environment. What is the business context right now? Is the company stable and growing? Is my team on track? Is this a moment when a yes is even possible? Or am I heading into headwind? Alignment. Have I been having ongoing conversations about my growth? Does my manager already know I'm working towards this? Am I asking out of nowhere? Or is this the natural next step in a conversation we've already been having? Development. Have I addressed any feedback or gaps that have been raised? Can I demonstrate growth and coachability? Is my case stronger because of how I responded to challenges, not in spite of them? And you. Have I been in this role long enough to demonstrate success at this level? Am I asking from a place of confidence and clarity or from frustration and urgency? Because your energy in that conversation matters more than you think. If you can say yes to all 5, you're ready. And I mean genuinely ready. Not just ready to make the ask, but ready to make the ask well. And here's one more thing I want to leave you with, because this is something the article says, and I think it's absolutely gold. Put yourself in your manager's shoes. Evaluate what's happening across the team or company and ask yourself, Will this timing make it easier or harder for me to get a yes? That question alone, will this timing make it easier or harder for me to get a yes, is one of the most powerful things you can ask yourself before you walk into that room. Because when you make it easy for your manager to say yes, they almost always do. All right, let me give you your key takeaways from today's episode because I want you to be able to action this immediately. The 5 timing mistakes to avoid. 1, asking again too soon after a recent promotion. 2, raising it too early with a new manager before you've built trust. 3, asking when the business is under pressure or off track. 4, making the ask before you've incorporated recent feedback. And 5, waiting so long that your manager comes completely out of nowhere. And the ready check, your framework before you ask. Results. Do I have clear outcomes to point to? Environment. Is the business context right? Alignment. Have I been building towards this in conversation? Development. Have I addressed feedback and demonstrated growth? And you. Have I been in the role long enough? Am I asking from confidence? So here's my challenge for you this week. Book a one-on-one with your manager or put it on the calendar if you don't already have a regular one. And in that meeting, ask one of these questions. What does over-delivering look like at my level? Or what would I need to demonstrate to be considered for the next step? Just start the conversation, plant the seed, because the promotion conversation isn't a single moment. It's a relationship you will build over time. If this episode resonated with you, I would love to hear from you. Screenshot this episode, share it on LinkedIn or Instagram, and tag me and tell me which of these 5 mistakes you made. Or which one are you most at risk of making right now? No judgment. We've all been there. That's why we talk about it. And if you're in the middle of a job search, a career pivot, or you're ready to level up but not sure how to position yourself, I want you to check out my Career Ambitions group coaching program. It's a 90-day live group coaching experience where we work on your personal brand, your career story, your interview skills, your negotiation strategy. Everything we talk about on this podcast, but in a hands-on, personalized, community-supported environment. You can find all the details on my website at joannesparrow.com. And if you want to talk about whether it's the right fit for you, feel free to book a free clarity call. The link will be in the show notes. Thank you so much for spending the time with me today. I genuinely love being part of your career journey, and I will see you in the next episode. Until then, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep owning your career story.
Thank you so much for listening to Career Ambitions. If this episode gave you a new perspective, a practical takeaway, or even a little spark of confidence you needed, I would love for you to follow the show and leave a review. And if you're an ambitious corporate professional who's ready to stop guessing and start moving with a clear strategy, I would love to invite you to my masterclass. Inside this masterclass, I teach the exact strategies my clients are using to land their dream jobs. You can learn more about the masterclass in the show notes or at joannesparrow.com. See you in the next episode of Career Ambitions.